Greetings to you all. We are Romerica, and today we have a rather unusual subject. Rachel?
We're going to talk about our first musical memory.
That's right. Why don't you just start sharing? I've been also meaning to ask you if that those certain musical memories, if they affected your musical tastes or even your career choices along the way. Because I've been thinking about that, and I think they did for me. But let's just talk about you now.
Okay, so to answer your question, I would say yes to all of that.
Well, thanks. We're done for today. Kidding. Why don't you just detail?
Okay, I was thinking about this earlier. I think that early on in a person's life, they listen to all these different musical things early on in somebody's life that dictates to what kind of person they'll be later on.
Mm-hmm.
For the rest of their life, in fact. For me, I remember listening to The Who. I like a lot of arpeggios. For anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's actually arpeggio. You know how you hear a synthesizer going really fast, playing the same thing over and over. It's an arpeggio.
You mean that synth sound that it was originally intended for disco, later on for electronic music, right?
Yep, it's in techno.
Nowadays it's being used in a lot of music styles, even trailer music.
Yeah.
Tell us more about the piece itself.
Yeah, it was one of the Who songs. It was called, or it is called actually, We Won't Get Fooled Again.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts out with a ARP sound. And I noticed that whatever music I make today, and whatever music I make today, and whatever I listen to,
Mm-hmm.
usually has that sound in it somewhere. Different sound, but same premise.
That's peculiar.
Yes, it is interesting.
Very long track, because I just listened to it after you sent me that. But you didn't actually told us what were you doing? How did you manage to listen to it? How old were you? You know, those are interesting stuff, you know.
It just slipped my mind. So when I was about, I guess 2 or 3, that's when I started listening to that, you know.
2 or 3.
My parents and I, yeah.
What the hell? You were listening to music at that age?
Yeah, like anybody else.
So do you have memory concerning your first 5 years of life?
Yeah.
What the?
I was about that age, and I remember a lot of that because, you know, my parents and I, we traveled across the states. And, you know, I think that was one of the best things about it. We listened to music, and I mean, we were always on the road. We didn't actually get out of the truck too much, but we saw a lot. That was the business.
So you listened to that track at some point at the radio?
We listened to a lot of that stuff. A lot of 1960s stuff and 80s. And I remember The Lion King. You know, that was pretty influential.
So it was one of your first pieces of music that you remember listening to?
Yep.
And you mentioned something about Babylon 5. Does that have any...
My parents used to watch that all the time when it was airing and all that, and that was in the 90s. But my parents used to watch that all the time, and I just, because they listened, or they watched it all the time, I had the theme music stuck in my head. Some of that show just really had an impact. And maybe that's also what contributes to my ability to write.
Well, I've been thinking about this subject for a long time. I wanted to write a blog post about it or do a video. I was just thinking that it's not only music, everything that we're subjected to in life, movies, persons we meet, music we listen, experiences we have, where we travel, everything can shape us as persons and make us unique individuals. We are not born in any way, we're just shaping along the way with music and media. Basically, at some point where we can make decisions, we gotta be careful what we choose, right?
Yeah.
In my case, I was around 5 or 6. I was spending my summers at my grandparents most of the time. Back in the 90s, there were only 2 channels from the national televisions there, because they didn't have any cable there. But they had some interesting shows, like some documentary shows. One of the documentary show had this intro music, which again, it was in the 90s, so I didn't have a clue what the hell was it. But I was so enchanted by it, so intrigued by it, because it just started. Well, the piece is Conquest of Paradise from Vangelis. It was from a movie, basically. It's a soundtrack. I didn't know it was a soundtrack. I didn't know who was doing the piece, but I enjoyed that very much. I could still remember how I heard it first on TV, and I was like, every time I heard it, I was like, I gotta get close and up the volume so I can enjoy it. I wasn't doing music, of course, for a lot of years after that. I didn't know who the hell played that, because again, no internet. I didn't know about Vangelis, about other music composers, which now I love, like Vangelis too. After some years, when I've started discovering Vangelis and other music composers, film composers, basically I recognized the piece that I've been listening to all my childhood. I was like, whoa, huge revelation. I don't know, maybe I had it in me, like I didn't know it was a soundtrack, but I still enjoyed it, and now I'm enjoying soundtrack music and also creating music for media, for films, for games and everything. So that's very it's a curious thing, you know.
That makes me curious about your childhood. You know, you don't strike me as somebody who would listen to whatever was on the radio during the time. Have you always been underground type of stuff?
Well, no, that's the thing. I listened to a lot of mainstream stuff because I didn't have any choices. My father used to enjoy, I mean, he still enjoys it, certain classical music pieces. That also, it wasn't, he's not like very much into that, but it was still a small part which made me curious about that direction of music. It also shaped my musical tastes. So that's what I'm telling you, that there's certain minor decisions concerning music, and they impact your later tastes, and even in our cases, our career decision, because we make music for media now, and we also kind of like use that style that we loved back then. We basically use certain elements. We're still being influenced by that. That's a huge thing, because I was just, that piece, Conquest of Paradise, I didn't listen to it for a long time, and 4 years ago or 3 years ago, I was in Barcelona running on the beach, and I suddenly felt the need to play that track, because, you know, it was from a movie about navigation and ships. Basically, I was along the seashores with the seagulls, listening to that glorious, epic music. We'll put the links to the music we mentioned here, just so you can listen to them if you don't know about them and you're curious.
I think this is also why we're so opinionated about whatever music comes out these days. I don't have any opinions on what's on the radio because I don't listen to that.
It depends on the radio, but just the fact that I need to wait for a certain music that I like to air on a radio station, it just annoys me. I just like to have my own music and listen to it depending on how I feel in that certain moment. We talked about this in another episode. I don't listen to a lot of music. When I do it in style. Yeah.
Well, that's the way to be.
Like running with the seagulls, listening to Conquest of Paradise. Yeah. you people need to listen to our music down below, see how these certain music styles which we talked about impacted us. You can also subscribe to us for further videos, right, Rachel?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes. Click the bell button to get more updates from this channel, and please do subscribe. There's a link that's called Linktree. Click that button, and it'll open up a window to all our social media links.
It will bloom in all sorts of various links.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time with another interesting subject.
If you have anything that you want to suggest to us, we're always open for that.
See you later.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.